Hello everybody, Gisele Grenier here. So in part 2 of the extended palette video, these are the colors that I have in my extended palette. And these are colors that if I find that I'm needing to do something a little bit more specialized, where it's just going to take way too long to do it with my primary colors, then this is where I go to. Some of these colors I may use just once in a while, but I always make sure that I have it in my stash. So I'm going to go through them, and they don't all fit on camera. The Decor Traditions, Phthalo Green Yellow, Phthalo Green Blue, Red Violet, Quinacridone Violet, Naphthol Red, Paranone Orange, Hansa Yellow, Yellow Oxide. Well, okay, this is in my limited palette, but there's a reason why I have it here. So Yellow Oxide, Transparent Yellow Oxide, Raw Sienna, Quinacridone Burnt Orange, Burnt Sienna for a reason, Burnt Umber, Raw Umber, Carbon Black. And then I have Titanium White here. Having Yellow Oxide and Burnt Sienna in this particular one, there's a reason for it, and I'm going to get to it when we get to those colors. So, a lot of stuff out here. So I'm going to start off with the Phthalo Green Yellow. If I didn't want to make up my greens, I could go with using this. Choosing whether to make up your greens or using something premix is a personal preference. And for this particular one, which is a green that leans towards yellow, I would choose to use this premixed if I needed consistent results. Let's say I needed a large quantity of paint and it had to be the same, I would choose a premixed green. So let's say I'm working on a large portrait where I need the green to be consistent. I could choose to use something like this. Although I prefer Viridian because it's less staining. Phthalo Green Blue is a green that leans towards blue. This is a nice one. They're both nice for landscapes. They're really a little too intense, so you need to knock them back. I can't think of anything in nature that is this color. This one here maybe a little bit, but not this one here. And if you do have this color in nature, as is, I would love to see a picture, so I'll post it below. Look at that. Oops, let's get rid of that there. Okay, Red Violet. This is one that I was going back and forth along with Quinacridone Violet. I find that Red Violet makes a much nicer bright purple instead of ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. That is my choice of how I make my purple, because it's muted. But if I needed something super bright, Red Violet is a better choice for that. I love how the colors look when they're muted. Quinacridone Violet is what I've always used in my palette. But you can see that it's more red. Even though it says Quinacridone Violet, it's PR 122. It's a red. So you can see that Red Violet would make a much nicer bright purple than this one. But then again, it's all personal preference. Naphthol Red is a neutral red. I rarely need to use this. You can call this fire engine red, depending on where you live. And it does lean ever so slightly. It's not, I still would call it more of a neutral. Because this one here, depending on the lighting that I'm working with, it tells me where it leans. Like right now, it looks like it leans more towards blue, but all I'll have to do is tilt it to the light in the ceiling if I had these off, and it would look like it leans towards orange. It's pretty neutral. Paranone Orange, Transparent Orange. I don't use this very often because it is very, very intense. But it is a beautiful color for painting florals. All right. Hansa yellow. A neutral yellow that at first glance it doesn't look like it leans really anyway on the color wheel. But again, depending on the lighting that you have, right now, because my lighting is primarily cool light, it does look like it leans a bit more towards green. But again, like Naphtha Red, all I gotta do is tilt it towards the warm light and it'll look like it leans towards orange. All right, the reason why I have yellow oxide here is because I have transparent yellow iron oxide here. If you like the look of transparent yellow iron oxide, but didn't have it, you could do it with yellow oxide. And I'm not even going to put white in that because that's defeating the purpose of transparent yellow iron oxide. And then we have yellow oxide. I'm going to do this just to show transparency and opacity. You could add medium to the yellow oxide. You would have to go back to that video to see how this was done on the buy or DIY steps. And then we have raw sienna, which is a semi-transparent. Think of it almost like yellow oxide, but semi-transparent, but it's a lot more, it's a neutral. They're all PBR7. More on the orange side. And this one I could add a little bit of white to it. It's kind of weak in tinting strength. Actually, you know what, while we're here, let me add white to these just to be consistent. So we have yellow oxide with white. Let's just be consistent. Okay. I'm gonna flip my paper towel over. It's getting kind of grungy. And then transparent red iron oxide with white. So when you add white to transparent yellow iron oxide, you're defeating the purpose of using it for transparency. Okay. All right, so next, burnt sienna. The reason why I have burnt sienna out here is because, for me, DecoArt has discontinued transparent red iron oxide, so I would need to make it with, let's say, even transparent burnt sienna, so make that transparent. So, I messed that up. I messed up those colors. I put the wrong order. Let me back that up a bit. That's burnt sienna. And I don't have a spot to add the white to it. So I'll put that right here. Okay. And transparent red iron oxide is this one here. Adding white, again, defeats the purpose, but you'll be able to see the true underlying color. I was heartbroken when I found out DecoArt discontinued this color. There we go. All right. Burnt umber. You do not have to have this color. It does make your job a little bit easier if you're big on landscapes. You can make it. My quick and easy method of making it is 2 parts burnt sienna to 1 part ultramarine blue. The only problem with that is that burnt umber by nature is opaque. Ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, semi-transparent. All right. Then we have raw umber, which is a neutral, which is an earth tone neutral that leans slightly towards green. Burnt umber leans a bit more towards the red orange, and you should know this by now because we've done all the lessons. Raw umber also for me, is it weak tinting strength? Very much a neutral that it's not very strong, and makes for a perfect color for underpainting a canvas, or for monochrome and oil glazing. And then we have the almighty chromatic black, or carbon black. We covered this recently and extensively. It's a blue that leans toward, the black that leans towards blue. And then we have quinacridone burnt orange. So quinacridone burnt orange, in conjunction with some phthalo colors and some red violets or quinacridone violet, I use that if I need to make a transparent red iron oxide or even an alizarin crimson. There's different ways, because in the fluid acrylics they don't have alizarin crimson deco art, so I have to use either traditions or make something. But quinacridone burnt orange is a really, really intense orangey color. It's an orangey, very similar. It's a little bit more orange and transparent red iron oxide, but taking that and then mixing in, where did it go? A little bit of burnt sienna. Makes it close to transparent red iron oxide. Where did that go? Makes it close. So could use that as an alternative. Okay. So to be consistent, let's add our white to that. So compared to transparent red iron oxide, you can definitely see that this is more orange. Here we go. So in my extended palette, so if the primary colors don't do it, I may pull out some colors from my extended palette. There's a color missing. Oops. Cerulean blue. Cerulean blue. You don't need this. You can make it by hand. But if you're doing a large painting, seascape, having the colors pre-mixed, sometimes it's just a little bit easier. There's only one thing that I disagree with the way that this was labeled. Let me just put this in here. DecoArt says that cerulean blue is opaque. It's not. It's semi-transparent. So there you go. So that was, I totally forgot that one. You can easily make this up. Cerulean blue. Alrighty. So it's a, this is pretty well all I have. And like I said, colors that I use that I pull from my extended palette most frequently is these two. That one. That one for sure. Raw sienna, not so much. Transparent red oxide, yes. And quinacridone burnt orange if I'm stuck with transparent red iron oxide, which I will be because I think I'm almost out of that. So that's it. So what I want you to do now is I want you to go through all your paints, not including your limited palette. Put together an extended palette, a palette that's going to help you go a little bit further. Like I said, you don't need these colors other than the single pigment ones. You could already make with your limited palette. The purpose of an extended palette is to basically make your job a little bit easier where you need consistency in the colors, or colors that just cannot be replicated any other way. Okay, colors that cannot be replicated any other way. So cerulean blue would make my job much easier when painting a seascape, but I can make it with white plus a little bit of phthalo blue and a phthalo green blue. Red violet, I cannot make this color with anything in my limited palette. I cannot make this color. So if I needed a bright violet with ultramarine blue and red violet, I'm going to get that bright violet, and I'm not going to get that bright of a violet with ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. It's just not going to happen. Naphthol red and Hansa yellow, I don't use those a lot. Where these come in handy, if I run out of Hansa yellow light, I can take Hansa yellow and add the smidgen of phthalo green yellow. If I run out of Naphthol red light, I could take Naphthol red and add the smidgen of Paranone orange or Hansa yellow medium. Transparent yellow iron oxide, I use it between transparent yellow iron oxide and transparent red iron oxide. I use those for mixed media, especially steampunk art. That's really the only time I use it. Raw umber I use to prime canvases for portraits. Burnt umber, it's nice to have if I need an opaque brown, because I can take 2 parts burnt sienna, 1 part ultramarine blue to get something like this, but it's going to be semi-transparent where burnt umber is opaque. Raw sienna is great for painting animals like animal fur and golden hair, but I can get the same thing with yellow oxide, and I can put a little bit of burnt sienna or even a little bit of raw umber in that to get something close to this. It's nice to have, but you don't need it. So there's a bunch of different things. And carbon black, of course, I prefer chromatic black. So make up your extended palette with colors that you like, that you're not able to replicate, that you really like, that would make your job easier, and that you can't replicate. I think I just said that already. So you're going to make up your extended palette. Make notes. That's important to make notes as to why you're choosing these colors. Alrighty? So you're going to do that. And then in the next video, we're going to put together the entire palette of the current limited palette and extended palette as a whole. And we're going to lay it out on the color wheel. So until I see you in that lesson, stay inspired.